Lower load resistance training refers to using loads of less than 50% of one repetition maximum, and despite going against conventional wisdom, when sets are taken close to concentric muscular failure, using lower loads can be a viable and effective method to develop muscle hypertrophy and strength. Specifically, lower load resistance training may be beneficial when access to gyms or equipment is restricted, or during periods of low activity, for example, immobilization of a single limb or rehabilitation, whereby lower load resistance training may be a practical option to help offset muscle atrophy. And of course, lower loads can also be used by individuals who might have an apprehension of using heavy loads. In the article published in the journal Sports Medicine, titled Physiological Responses and Adaptations to Lower Load Resistance Training, Implications for Health and Performance, by Jonathon Weakley and colleagues, reviewed the mechanisms responsible for improvements in skeletal muscle and physical performance, with specific emphasis on lower load resistance training. This presentation, brought to you by Talking Sports Science, will be a summary of their general recommendations for resistance training while using lower loads. Regarding volume and frequency, 3 to 4 sets per exercise, 2 to 3 times per week is recommended. And as mentioned previously, lower load resistance training refers to using loads less than 50% of one repetition maximum. However, because there is likely a relative intensity threshold with which adaptations are suboptimal, training with loads no lower than 30% of 1 RM is recommended. Despite the reduced load, to maximize the benefits, a high level of effort is required, as sets need to be taken close to concentric failure to achieve muscle hypertrophy and strength adaptations, which can lead to high levels of discomfort. Furthermore, it should be highlighted that the use of lower loads does not exclude the use of higher loads, as exercising with lower loads potentially is most beneficial following higher loads. In terms of exercise selection, although multi-joint exercises can be used, from a practical standpoint, lower loads are potentially most beneficial with single joint exercises, as they often have less complexity, have a lower burden on other muscle groups, reduce the need for a spotter, and enable greater focus on exercising closer to failure, which is necessary to achieve muscle hypertrophy and strength adaptations. Speaking of strength adaptations, to help overcome differences between higher and lower loads, Jonathon Weakley and colleagues recommend the occasional exposure to maximal strength tests. And lastly, due to the substantial neuromuscular fatigue induced from lower load training, at least 48 to 72 hours between exercise sessions are recommended to support recovery. And because lower load resistance training often requires higher volumes of exercise, to help maximize the benefits, careful consideration should be given to how it fits within a periodized exercise routine. And that concludes the recommendations for the use of lower load resistance training, which, as mentioned previously, can be used in conjunction with higher loads, so it doesn't have to be an either-or approach, with the approach taken being a personal choice based on individual goals. As always, I recommend you go and check out the full article. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, folks. See you next time.